Hello there, Romans here, and welcome to my next installment in Worst to Best videos, where I take a discography of a certain group and I rank all of their studio albums from worst to best based on my personal opinion. I also review all the records from a viewpoint of a musician, as I am a singer, songwriter and a bass player for my own group Jakobe, and something like 3 months ago we have released our debut album called Pursuits in Life. What makes the album unique is that it's a pretty heavy prog rock without guitars. Instead you have drums, bass, saxophone and keyboards. You can check out the first single on my YouTube channel, it's called We're Building Our Own Monument, and in the description of that video you can find all the information about where is the record available. It's available on all digital platforms like Spotify, Tidal, Deezer, Amazon, iTunes, but also in a digipack format with a very beautiful 20 pages long booklet. And today we're going to talk about one of my all-time favorite groups, Extreme, and this is going to be probably a shorter video as they have released only 5 studio albums, so let's dive right into that.
Music review. Music review.
At number 5 I have Extreme's self-titled debut album from 1989. Now, this is a record where I think Extreme were still kind of searching for their own unique sound and style, and they weren't quite there yet. I mean, the problem with this record is that with so many great records that came in that year and before that, they didn't really stand out from their contemporaries, and they were still one of the many groups in that genre and in that period with their debut album. I mean, the first track, Little Girls, and one of the first singles, Kid Ego, both of these tracks are, in my opinion, relatively average and forgettable. Wind Me Up is okay. Watching Waiting is a song that, as a songwriter, I would probably do differently, because, I mean, when the song starts and the verses are beautiful, but then the chorus is just so pushed and it sounds like from a completely different song, it really ruins the atmosphere for me. Mother, Don't Wanna Go to School, after that beginning, has a part that's very reminiscent of Van Halen's Unchained song. You've got that heavy overdriven guitar with flanger. Of course the songs are different, but there are some hints of their inspiration, and even in the song, like for example Small Signals, that acoustic intro is very reminiscent of the song Take My Whiskey Home from Van Halen. But both of these tracks are like okay. But of course there are also some really great tracks on the album, like for example Teacher's Pet is, in my opinion, up there with the best tracks Extreme wrote. Then Play With Me is just such a great song. I mean, why haven't they included in the original version of the album? This is such a great song. Then Big Boys Don't Cry is reasonably okay as a song. Also Flesh and Blood is a really great track. And there's also a ballad based on the piano, something that they would do on other records, called Rock-a-Bye Bye. This is a pretty good song, but that solo at the end, well, that solo has almost like, I think, 2 minutes, but that solo is out of this world. One of the best solos I've ever heard. You pretty much just have keyboard pads and that beautiful emotional journey. I mean, wow, that's amazing. But I don't wanna go to school today. Number 4, and I'm not sure how this is pronounced, so if I pronounce it wrong then sorry, Saudades de Rock. This is the, as of now, final studio album from Extreme from 2008, so at this point it's a 10 years old album. This is a record that they recorded after their reunion, because in the second half of the 90s they broke up. And I remember that back in the day they were kind of presenting this album as being like Pornograffitti 2 and being their strongest album. That was kind of far-fetched in my opinion. But looking back at this album, I mean, it's a pretty good album. The album opens up with a very Queen-influenced song, Star, which is kind of cool. And then you have many tracks on the album that sound like that traditional, funky, heavy grooved rock, but with a very strong 70s vibe and 70s flavor, which is something new for Extreme. I do believe that each one of their records was a little different. Songs like these are, for example, Comfortably Dumb or Run, then very pop-punk, Flower Man, and also Slide. There are also some songs that in my opinion are not that good, like for example Learn to Love could have had a better chorus. Also, the Beatles influenced Sunrise is not really my favorite song. The worst track on the album is The King of the Ladies, which they also shot a video for. I think that this is a pretty forgettable track. Then you've got some experiments here, like for example very country slash bluesy influenced Take Us Alive, which is something new for Extreme, but it doesn't sound unnatural. That's great about it. And then I think that you have really great ballads on this album. If you go through this album, you can definitely hear that Gary's voice is pretty worn out, but he still delivers pretty breathtaking performance, especially in the ballad Last Hour. I mean, that vocal performance is out of this world, it's amazing. Also, Ghost is a beautiful track, maybe my most favorite track on the album, and it sounds like something that Coldplay would write, and it would have been a huge hit. Interface is that traditional early 90s acoustic Extreme song with beautiful vocals, and also the song Peace is a very beautiful track. Number 3, well, this was a difficult choice to pick, but here we are waiting for the punchline. This is their final studio album before they broke up in the 90s. It's from 1995, and this is the record where Extreme went alternative or went grunge. And you had many groups that were similar and released grunge records like Warrant or Danger Danger, even Mötley Crüe, or even Kiss. And I do believe that Extreme were still one of those more successful groups doing that. And when we look at this album, I mean, it's still, in its core, a traditional Extreme album. It's much more stripped down and much more minimalistic when compared to their previous two bombastic records. But I think this is a very, very good album. I mean, when I look at the track list, I can't help but wonder if certain names of the songs were supposed to be the opposites of the tracks from the Three Sides to Every Story. I mean, on that record you had song God Isn't Dead, here you have a song There Is No God. Then you had the song Don't Leave Me Alone, here you have a song Leave Me Alone. Now I'm not sure if that was, if there's a purpose for that or if it's just a coincidence, but generally we have a really great album here. Yet again, this is still that traditional Extreme funk rock style, but with a very strong alternative or grunge or post-grunge flavor, like the songs There Is No God, then Cynical, which has really those great vocals, then very unnerving Tell Me Something I Don't Know, or relatively crazy and the song that's all over the place, Hip Today. Also Leave Me Alone, probably the most grungy song. You also have some of the heaviest tracks from Extreme like Naked or No Respect. Both of these tracks have Gary screaming the choruses. I really love his voice because he really seems like this very passionate frontman that gives it all to his performance. Evangelist is a song that's almost unsettling in how dark it is. That's something very, very new for Extreme at that point. You also have a beautiful instrumental, Midnight Express. I'm personally not a big fan of instrumentals, as I'm a singer. I like the songs with vocals, but this instrumental is just absolutely amazing. You also have two slower tracks, Shadow Boxing, which is more like a pop rock song, and the beautiful ballad Unconditionally. Then you also have the track Fair Weather Faith, which is a very traditional Extreme song, and I think it could have been on any of the previous records. And then, after a couple of seconds of silence, you have the Waiting for the Punchline title track, which is also very heavy and very dark. I don't even know if it has any chorus. At number 2 we have Pornograffitti from 1990, so that's the album that came out when I was born, and I have it on CD. This is one of those records where, as a songwriter, I just kind of wonder how could they write such a fantastic album. This is one of the most unique rock albums I've ever heard, so you should definitely check it out. You've got that sort of a hard rock with a very strong funk influence, but it's just, I mean, it's so juicy. You can hear that Nuno Bettencourt was very heavily influenced by Eddie Van Halen, but he has such a signature and unique style and sound of his own that is unbelievable. And thinking about the fact that this record came out a year after their debut album, it's unbelievable how much progress this group have made, or had made. Not sure about what tense to use there. Had made, yeah, or have made. Had made. Hello, mate. These tracks are just so much fun, they are so danceable, and they are so positive and so full of energy, like Decadence Dance, and Lil Jack Horny, When I'm President. I love the horn section in like when Get the Funk Out. It really feels like something that nobody really did at that time. Then Money, In God We Trust, It's a Monster, Pornograffitti, Susie, He-Man Woman Hater. I mean, all of these tracks are, I'll say it again, so juicy. Of course, then you have the song that made Extreme very famous, and that's not just their biggest hit, but one of the biggest hits ever, More Than Words. Saying I love you, it's not the words I want to hear from you. It's not that I want you not to say, but if you only knew. A big hit, everybody knows that song, but it's still very unique. Then you've got very 40s swing influence song, When I First Kissed You. Without guitars, you have just keyboards, you have double bass and drums. A beautiful song that, you know, is very different from all that energized hard rock, but it fits the record perfectly. Then you've got Song for Love, which may be my least favorite track on the album, but it's still, you know, it has those very dark verses and that anthemic chorus. And at the end, with those high tones, Gary really shows what a huge range he has. The final track, Wholehearted, is slightly more cowboy / country bluesy acoustic song that I really like. It's got very 90s vibe, but it's a great song. I'm just kind of a, you know, I'm wondering why it's at the end of the record. Maybe I would put it somewhere in the middle. Number one, you probably know already, Three Sides to Every Story. I even had it on LP, I have it on CD, but I do prefer the LP version. I'm gonna tell you why. So this is one of the best records I've ever heard. It's just so amazing. I mean, this record is divided into 3 parts because you've got 3 sides to every story. So the first one is called Yours, and it's made out of heavier tracks, but all of these tracks are fantastic. Warheads, just so groovy. Rest in Peace. Then I love the horn section on Politicality that kind of reminds you of Get the Funk Out from the previous record. But, you know, even though these tracks feel like traditional Extreme, it doesn't feel like something they've done before. And the groove is just amazing. Politicality, then Cupid's Dead, then really heavy but at the same time very melodic, Color Me Blind. Peacemaker Die, which with beautiful lyrics. The second part is called Mine, and it's made out of more slower songs. You've got that 7 Sundays song without guitars in a 3/4 time signature that has almost that swingy vibe. Then very funky and acoustic Tragic Comic, Our Father, which is still pretty heavy but melodic, Stop the World, a huge hit, God Isn't Dead, that almost feels like an musical or theatrical piece. And also the song Don't Leave Me Alone, which they didn't put on a CD because the whole record was more than 80 minutes long, so they couldn't fit all the songs on the CD. So that's why I prefer the LP version, because it's a piano-based song with a beautiful keyboard solo. I just love that. The third part is called The Truth, and it's Everything Under the Sun, a 3-piece, kind of an epic. I mean, Rise and Shine is so emotional and so melodic, it's so beautiful. Am I Ever Gonna Change is slightly heavier. Then Who Cares is very Queen influenced. I mean, this is one of the best records I've ever heard. I don't really understand why it wasn't as successful as Pornograffitti, but this is, you know, having heard more than 3,000 records in my life, this is definitely the record you should check out. It's one of the best records ever. So what is your own worst to best list of Extreme's records? You can leave a comment in the comment section below. You can follow me on Facebook or on Instagram. You can find the links to both in the description of the video below. If you like this video, don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe, to check out my own original music, some other reviews, or the other worst to best video. Thanks a lot for watching.